Hello, I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this is a podcast series called I Want to Be a Better Coach. And again, the intention of this is to support and empower you to really look at who you are in this process, in this practice of being a coach. Or that may mean that you're a mom or a dad or a parent or a teacher or anyone who's interacting with people in the medical world, the health practitioner, bartenders, beauty salons, wherever we're connecting with people, we have an opportunity to connect at a different level that supports and empowers them to be their best self, be their best self. And that, in a sense, comes down to um, seeing, hearing, and getting them. I mean, that's the bottom line. So, our capacity to see, hear, and get other people is just the foundation. If you get that, then you're going to be really effective at connecting with people, being and connecting with people. And so that's what this is about, generally speaking. I want to talk today to the um, the interesting elements of being on the planet at this time. And part of it, for a lot of people, when they focus on the news and the politics and things like that, it looks pretty awesomely awful. It looks pretty awesomely awful. And if you listen to other information coming in from more spiritually oriented people, not fear based spiritually, but cosmic based, I'll put it that way. We're listening to people who channel higher levels of consciousness. And all of those people, and I listen to many of those, they are, in a sense, sharing that there's an elevation of energy and consciousness on the planet. I've experienced that myself, and it's what I focus on. The energy of love and compassion and kindness and generosity of spirit. More and more of that's coming in. And I'm told that a lot. So, and I focus on that, and I truly experience that in my heart. And I can get scared if I can, in a sense, the collective conscious energy, quite a lot of it is fear-based. And so it's not unusual for any of us to kind of, at times, feel that fear-based uh, perspective. And I can shift it more often than not because I know and I trust and I have faith in this level of consciousness that's coming in. Now, as a life coach, as a transformational life coach, as a spiritual coach, as somebody that's just listening to people, as a parent or a bartender or health practitioner, we're hearing how people are being with how it is right now. And they can be in a fear-based perspective. This is what I call an O-meter, my O-meter. So when I do this, in a sense, it's like lower levels of dense energy, which is fear-based, them, us, wrong, right. It's a horrible, terrible world. And there's no potentiality or very little for seeing or experiencing the positivity, the O-meter going in the other direction. So what's happening, though, as the energy or the level of consciousness is increasing on the planet and in the planet, in a sense, the Earth, too, is going through an ascension process. We're all going through an ascension process. The universe and universes are going through ascension process. Some of this I don't necessarily understand, but I do understand that the vibrational frequency of the planet and who we are in our physical bodies and the trees and the birds and the animals, our frequency is shifting. I don't want to get too cosmic or quantum physics kind of thing, but it's just a lot of us are feeling things or experiencing what I call Ascension-Itis, in a sense. We're experiencing a spiritual awakening, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a spiritual, but an awakening or a feeling that's uncomfortable. And quite often this is considered, I'm calling it an Ascension-Itis, but it's growing pains. And it's natural and it's normal for us to ascend and to transcend the limited perspective. And that's partly why we're here now. We've all chosen, I believe, to be here now and participate and engage and and become ourselves with the dynamics of the circumstances that, again, can look dire. And but what we're doing here is, as I mentioned in the last video, is we're witnessing our own becoming. And part of that, if all of us, if we're in the adultness of our being, we've gone through the growing pains of the physical maturing, the physical changes of our body, which in many cases, for some people, there were some actual aches and pains of the growing pains, as we call them. And so many of us are experiencing growing pains. Now, you as a coach, or you as we'll just call it a coach, may be experiencing those things, or you may have people coming in into your practice, or people that that are going, wow, I feel really stuck, or I feel things that are really uncomfortable, or I don't know how to be with, or I'm feeling very emotional. And a lot of this has to do with this ascension process. And our 3D reality, consensus view of reality, doesn't speak to this. We speak to, most of us, if we feel like if we feel this discomfort or this dis-ease, we think it must be a medical problem. There must be something wrong. And we go to a health practitioner, or we go to a psychologist. And that can be a good thing, but if we have to at some point look at this bigger. And I've mentioned before the book Oneness, that's a channeled piece from Russia, and it says, hey, medical is important when you've got some things that are absolutely require that level of care, like broken bones or those kinds of things. But we have to really attend to the energetic vibration that's shifting. And that's why energy medicines are coming in, and a lot of healing and Reiki is happening and those kinds of things, because it's addressing us as our whole energetic being, the frequency of us. So what I want to focus on today is this, what I'm calling Ascension-Itis, is just like there's something that doesn't feel right, it feels off, and I can't find, you might go to the doctor and say, I don't feel well, and they go, well, everything's looking good and everything's feeling well, and that they can't find the source of it. It's generally because probably your system, your energy is moving stuff through. Now, I've gone through this many times, this what I call a spiritual immersion process, where like when I was 16, 17, I went into a sort of a deep dive, call it a dark night of the soul. And that was really intense. And that was in the 50s and 60s, 1960s. And there was no therapy. There was very little support. So I basically went it alone. And when I was in my 30s, which would put it in the 80s or 90s, I went through another one. And that was really intense, and just really intense. And I had enough knowing that I could support myself through this, but didn't have any other support. And then as I went through with my my PhD in transpersonal psychology and focused on spiritual guidance and spiritual emergence, I got more information about this process. In my 60s, I went through another really deep dive, basically, into a dark night of the soul. And it's like, wow, it's pretty intense. And I did a podcast series called Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. The link is below. Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. And there's 100 different videos / podcasts there of elements of what occurs in a spiritual emergence process. And it's, for me, just a lot of growing pains that we don't acknowledge. Basically. Even when I'm listening to people who are channeling or talking about, this new consciousness coming in, we're not speaking to how do we help people or support people or even be with this part that's really challenging, this discomfort. I've heard people mention it, but how do we actually be with that? And so that's what I want to address here shortly. And there's other videos. I've seen other YouTube people who do this and talk a little bit more about it. But I just want to address it in terms of what we're doing as life coaches, and I emphasize that life coaches. As life coaches, we're not just outcome based in a sense. Here's what people want. Here's the want. Some goal or outcome or some material thing, job, and that's what life is about. There's something else going on here that's huge. And so I, as the coach that I am and the trainer and teacher that I am, I really want to help people, support people to look at this in a bigger, more expanded perspective. So when our clients come in and stuff's happening, I have a bandwidth and a perspective that holds differently than just talking to the disease or the symptom or the indicators, and that there might be a therapeutic or dysfunctional element. There could be a dysfunctional element or indicator, but the percentages are very low that that's the case. Generally speaking, it's this spiritual immersion process, this what I'm calling Ascension-Itis, to keep it light, because it's not something to be afraid of. It's just a normal process of being human, and especially being human at this time. So I want to talk about some things that might be happening that you might be aware of for yourself or clients or other people that might be helpful to think about. So even now, so I talked about when I was in my 60s, but this kind of it's almost like a wave. Like sometimes I'm feeling great, a lot of energy, and then I might get some indicators that that I'm going to be going through another process. Now, quite often I'll get synchronistic kinds of things, indicators, like the clock will go 9:09 or 11:11 or 2:02. Like there's those indicators that have been so consistent over the years to say, okay, you're about to kind of head into another growing process. And so physically, my stomach quite often will get a little bit uneasy. That's the best way. It's like uncomfortable. When I eat too much or when I eat too little, nothing seems to work. And so again, we can go to, oh, there must be a medical problem. It must be a problem. But if you want to and need to see a doctor to make sure that it isn't that, that's a good thing. But it's not necessarily necessary. If you feel you need to do that, go do that. But generally, physical symptoms might be fatigue, emotional self, like the physical, you feel physically the energy of sad, bad, mad. You know, you might feel anger, like in your body, going, I just feel angry, or I feel hate, or I feel sad, or I feel this grief and sorrow, or I feel empty, or I feel lost. These feelings are so real. They're so real, and you can't deny them. Quite often in our life, we are in a state of denying or distracting ourselves or ignoring or avoiding our emotional self. And in these periods where there's this process occurring, we can't ignore it anymore. You might feel depressed. And then even during a day, mornings are good for me. And in this process, even right now that I'm going through, 4 o'clock comes and I feel this, and it feels really uncomfortable, and I just want to go to bed, and I don't want to eat, and I'm sad. All of it is just like, it kind of like, and so I just become more aware of that cycle or wave during my day, or wave during the year, or wave during, decades, who knows. But it's natural and normal. That's one of the things I want to say to you. It's natural and normal to have these processes. What we're doing is we're detoxing the old stuff. We're detoxing the density. We're detoxing the energy that we've not addressed because we've ignored and avoided and distracted ourselves. We're also, because of the ascension of the earth and the ascension process of the consciousness, it's creating a higher frequency. And if we don't align with that, then we feel that dis-ease. We don't feel the ease and the flow. We feel like, oh, something's off. Well, our level of consciousness is increasing, so we have to, because it's like the atoms and the neutrons and all of those things in our body are vibrating, and the frequency is changing, and we have to let that go just naturally. If we hold on to it, that's going to create more what we think of as illness, what we think of as disease, more symptoms that we think of are medical related. But if we pay attention to it and allow this process, then and support it and support others who are like in these processes and go, that sounds like a spiritual immersion process. That sounds like you're in this process of growing pains, if you will. Then we can support that versus thinking it's wrong or bad or negative, or feel guilty or blaming something or something. It must be the water. It must be the food. It must be my diet. It must be the exercise. It must be something. It's like, nope, this is you being you in the unfolding of you. It's really important. So physically, you might feel stomach issues, fatigue. You might feel headachy. Sometimes I'll get vertigo, a spinniness. So you might feel heart palpitations. You might feel aches in your body. You might feel, oh, my back, or my lower back or my knees, because that energy is moving through. The energy is moving through, and it feels painful sometimes, or uncomfortable. So that's kind of the little physical elements. Emotional, like I said, you might feel bad or sad or mad or glad even. You might feel a lot of joy come up. You might feel the experience of wonder and bliss and delight. Those things are in you too that need to be expressed and want to be expressed. But generally it's those denser, lower emotions, apathy, fear, shame or guilt. Like that might be coming up and you go, why am I feeling this way? Or you might have this big eruption of anger or sadness come through you. I remember a long time ago, and I was in the middle of a street. This was in Kitchener, Ontario, and I was having with my boyfriend, and all of a sudden I stopped in the middle of the street and I just burst out sobs. It's like, what the hell's going on here? And it's that kind of release that sometimes has to happen. It's natural and normal. It doesn't make you crazy or sick or insane. It's part of this evolution of you and the expansion of you. We have to release this, purge, detox, those kinds of words that require your growth and expansion. So those emotions, name them, they may come up. And why am I feeling so jealous? Why am I feeling? And these may be things that you were feeling as a little child or even as an infant, or you may be carrying it of somebody else or past life that may be coming through you, and you go, why am I feeling this way? And it's like, oh, it's right. It's releasing. It's releasing. And as we're doing our personal work, we're also working for the planet. So lots of people will experience things that other people are experiencing in other parts of the world and going, wow, I'm kind of moving that through. It's a fascinating process, but it's all happening. I have no doubt. So physical, emotional, mental. The logical brain cannot. It's like this doesn't compute with our 3D brain that talks about the separation of me. This is me. I'm in control of me, and there's the rest of the world. And I can't control this. I can't control it. But my mental wants to make logic out of it. They want to judge. They want to assess. They want to make certain what's happening. And we don't like uncertainty. We don't like uncertainty. Life is uncertain. And at the same time, we're always trying to we have a need to try to control the process. We have a need to try to control the outcome. So we're thinking in terms of controlling all the time, but really we don't have that ability. But our brain wants to function in that way. So you may see your brain doing things, but you also may feel confusion. You might feel disoriented in your thinking. You might not be able to think as clearly. Some of your memory may be distorted or not working. Like, these things happen when you're going through a process of ascension, this Ascension-Itis, these growing pains. You go, why, I must be getting old. My brain isn't functioning. I'm not remembering. It's like, oh, it could be that, but most likely you're going through a process where there's a reorientation, a reconnection. And we're talking about, a lot of times people are talking about heart coherence and the coherence with the neurological aspects of our heart. There are neurological functionings in our heart. You can look this up in many places, but Heart Math Institute talks about this and how that aligns with and connects with our mental brain. And so these are elements that are changing the circuitry of our being. I find it really fascinating. And when I'm going through it, it's like, oh my God, my brain isn't working, isn't functioning. I'm forgetting things, or oh my God, I thought I was, whatever that is. So that mental shift is occurring because we have to change our orientation and in order to expand to meet the levels of consciousness that are around us and with us and within us. And then spiritually, we might experience, people are experiencing higher degrees of connection with their guides. The veils, as they say, are getting thinner and thinner. So they may be experiencing relatives that, that come to them and speak to them. Or they have experiences of numinous experiences or experiences that are far beyond what they've ever thought possible. Or they may start to channel. Or they may have automatic writing. There's all kinds of things that are happening in the world. Before, it used to be the unique person who was the channel. And now so many people have that capacity. And listening to the level of consciousness of that ascended being, if you will, really helps too, in a sense. If the individual that you're channeling is fear-based, that's probably not a higher level of consciousness. The higher level of consciousness is talking about love and compassion and kindness and generosity of spirit. And it's all good and we're all safe. And that is coming in more and more and more and more. So and the other element is that the sense of the divine sacredness of this, what we're experiencing, is also coming more and more to people. So that's really fun. And it can be scary. A lot of people who've had near-death experiences or begin to channel or have these sort of metaphysical or mystical experiences, they go, I can't tell people about this because they're going to think I'm wacko. So a lot of times, I'll say to people, hey, do you have spiritual experiences, or have you ever had this, or you have? And they go, yeah, I have, but I've never talked about it because I'm afraid people will think I'm wacky. So as a coach, I can ask those questions. I can ask them about these things so that they feel like, again, seen, heard, and gotten. It's like, yeah, I've had these experiences, but I've never been able to talk about it because I'm afraid I'm going to get attacked or judged. So as a coach, we want to be able to be that open presence and space where people can be safe with us in this process. Energetically, this happens on all of these levels, body, mind, spirit, in a sense that sometimes I know for me, as the energies shift, sometimes my body is just moving and I'll have what's called kriyas. My body is just shaking like this. It's the energy that's moving through it. There's no, in a sense, emotion. There's no what we have a language for, oh, this feels like anger, or this feels like it could have that. But sometimes it's just energy moving. And it sometimes feels lovely, but sometimes it feels really uncomfortable. And especially if I'm stifling it or don't want it to come or distracting or avoiding myself, it tends to get constrained. And then it's like a volcano trying to erupt, but it's like, no, no, don't erupt. But if we let it erupt and we just let it be, it will pass through. I'll have these kriyas for, sometimes not very long, like a few minutes or a few seconds. It might be just a little of this, but sometimes my whole body is just shaking. In bed, I'm just like moving all over the place, and I go, okay, this is natural. It's like being in turbulence in an airplane. Is you just you ride it out and let it go. So that's very normal. That's very normal. I also find that I cough, sneeze, fart, and burp. Those are also major ways that our bodies release energy. And if we get sick with a cold, a lot of times that's a way for our bodies to say, okay, it's time you're going to rest, and you're going to cough a lot of this energy up that you're not making room for, or sneezing, or burping. Sometimes I'll go through states of retching, like it feels like I'm going to throw up, and I'm like throwing up, but it's nothing there. It's more from an energetic perspective. So that is really fascinating to me, and I've been doing that for, since my late 40s, having experiences of like going, oh, I'm going to throw up, and energetically, it's a releasing. You might hear gurgles and burgles in your stomach as energy is moving. So those are really important elements that are part of this. The emotional element, too, is we feel like we don't know how to be ourselves, and it feels like there's no support. It feels like we're alone. All kinds of feelings of, I want to call it, the word that comes up is disrepair or damaged or broken, and there's no way out. And I've talked about this before in terms of the birth process. There's these moments in our birthing process that is death-defying, and there's no way out. And it feels like that at moments in our lives. And again, it's not that there's something wrong. It's just this process that we're moving through. Now, it's really good. The reason I do these things is because we're supporting people and have the opportunity to support people through these processes. Or maybe we do need a therapist to help us process some of these old patterns that have been with us. We might be meeting traumas from the past. It might be past life traumas, might be ancestral traumas. It might be traumas from our own childhood or adulthood that we need to pay attention to. And so we can talk to people. There's so many specialists that are focused on trauma release. And so if we know that, it's like, wow, here's a big one coming up, then you can work with people on that. I have a friend of mine who is a master Reiki, and so when I have this stuff, I'm currently working with her and other practitioners that support me through whatever it is I'm going through. So being able to go, wow, I'm going through something. I wonder who I've got. Somebody will show up for you. And even if you listen to this and go, hey, what's Rosie got going on? That's a good thing too. So those are the main elements. Just easily, this is easily lighthearted, right? So our job as coaches is to know these places for ourselves, know these processes for ourselves. And I have no doubt that to whatever degree you've experienced this, you have experienced this. If you've gone through a loss or a major shift or transformation in your life, you've experienced this. I talk about this in the, speaking to people with crisis. It's like, these places where there's nowhere to go and nothing to do but just be here now in the present direct experience of this. And the more that you know that experience for yourself, the more you can support and empower others to do the same. I was speaking with a client yesterday. She's a new client. I'm going to call her Barbara. And she's amazing, and she's brilliant, and her business is wanting to expand, and yet she has these elements that she realizes just in a couple of sessions how controlling she's been at keeping things like this in her business life, her orientation. And she can say, here's what I want, but this is what I'm doing. And so as I'm able to see that and ask the questions like, how are you being in this? How are you being with this? She can more and more be clear about what she's being with and how she's being with her reality that has it be stifling and limiting and controlling. And so the more I can be aware of my process of moving through that, I can share that with her. It's like, hey, I know what that's like because I've been there. I know what that's like. And here's the dilemmas and the challenges of that. And even in that, it doesn't have to be an Ascension-Itis. It's all Ascension-Itis. It's all ascending and growing our expanding out of our limited perspective. And whenever we reach these, in a sense, ceilings, these glass ceilings of, oh, it's scary and it's hard, it's out of my comfort zone, that's an ascension potential. Or the potentiality is right there. And as a coach, we're empowering and supporting our clients and ourselves to be there in that moment. Direct experience with what is here right now. So, how do you be with this? Last piece of this. How do you be with this? First of all, soul food. Watch what you're eating for sure. Less sugar and less junk foods, those kinds of things. But I find it really necessary sometimes to have soulful food as opposed to saying, well, I can't eat that or that or that. Like, I know gluten and grains are not part of my soul food, basically. I love that, but it's not working in how I need it to work. So eating foods that feel nurturing and nourishing to my soul, that's really important, I think. Rest. Walking in nature. And walking in nature, not with your earbuds in, not with music, but you connected with nature. That's a really important thing. I was talking to a client who's like, when I'm out walking, I'm always listening to my books. And it's like, you're not really attuning into nature if you're also attuning to what's happening in the book. So leave your cell phone. I take my cell phone because it's my sort of emergency thing, but I have it off and no ringer, no listening, no looking. It's just there if I need it. So put down your screens for a while. I think it's really important to have something of wisdom. I read Oneness every morning because I need that input of a wisdom greater than myself that can give me something that I need to nurture my soul. So this is all nurturing of your soul. Food, nature. I have this wonderful cat over there. She's over, I'm backwards, so she's over there. Nope, she's over there behind me. Anyway, and she's very nurturing to my soul. So being connected with our animals, with our children, playing, those are really important things. Turning off the television, turning off news. You do not have to watch news. Anything that feels violent to you, anything that is disruptive, you can turn that off. You can let that go. Because what this is you're in a state of needing to move to these higher realms where that limiting, violent, them, us perspective is a violation of your heart and your well-being. So being able to turn that off. There's less and less things I can watch on, I have Netflix basically. And I watch less and less of what has any violence in it because it disturbs me and doesn't bring me to that place of serenity and peace, which are what I'm wanting. And what we're wanting on the planet. If we want, and we say, oh, I wish there was peace on the planet, we have to look at how am I inviting in something other than peace. And when we invite in the news, when we invite in anything that violates us, perhaps relationships that are not nurturing or kind to us, those are ways that we're not creating peace in the world. And so we have to look at that. So rest, drinking fresh water, because that helps clean and move things through. Breathing, if you go outside, if you just step outside if you can and just breathe, that's a good thing. Again, reading or listening to wisdoms, everyday wisdoms that are really great. Again, I started with a book by Melody Beattie, Language of Letting Go. That was when I was in my 30s. It's still a very, very good book. And that was so nurturing. There's little pieces that are very wise and clear and really helped me stay focused and aligned here. So bring in wisdom every day somehow. Journaling. You might get some automatic writing. You might have dreams, or you might have insights. You may have things that are like, wow, I never felt that before. And I write things down because that helps me validate and have evidence of something moving here. Quite often I'll have like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? And if I look at my notes, I'll go, oh yeah, this is the cycle. That is normal when I'm going through this kind of Ascension-Itis, is I start out high and start out energized and full and creative, and then by 4 o'clock, it stops, and I have to look at, okay, how am I going to be here now? Because I'm uncomfortable, and I want to go to bed. I want to kind of just huddle in. And so whatever I do to nurture myself, that is the time. I have to really pay attention and listen. What do you want for dinner? What do you want for... You want some tea? Do you want a new blanket? Do you want an extra sweater? Do you want... What is it you want? And ask yourself that, but listen to what you want. That's the most important thing. We want to be seen, heard, and gotten. We have to listen and say, what is it you want? And that's really, really, really important in times like this. So, as you know, I Want to Be a Better Coach is about you being a better coach. But it's also about, it says like, how can I be a better coach to other people? But you being aware of these cycles and these patterns and this ascension process that's occurring. It's not occurring for other people. It's occurring for every single one of us. And the more that we're aware of that, we can attune into, wow, yeah, I am a little more jittery, or I am a little more sad, or I am a little bit more whatever. And it allows us to be more conscious to this process that every single one of us is going through. So as I mentioned, in the description below, there's a link to the podcast series, Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. I also have 14 books, all of them related to certain elements of life and transformation. One I was thinking of, hang on one second, I'll get it. I think I got this the last time. This one. It's called Me, 101 Indispensable Insights I Didn't Get in Therapy. So a lot of the things that, when I trained to be a therapist and went through therapy and stuff, there was a lot that I didn't get, and that's what had me grow and train as a spiritual guide, was what we didn't get or can't get necessarily through therapy. So ME stands for miraculous existence. We're all a miraculous existence. So this is just one book that I've written that is small, one-pagers. That, again, this was automatic writing in the sense it came. Most of my writing is some things that came from someplace. And here it is now in this book. So just check it out. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Please leave a comment below if you've got something to say. I've gotten a few comments lately, and it's been such a delight to read what other people are experiencing through these conversations I'm having with you. Please like if you'd like, and subscribe, and please feel free to share these with other people that you think it might be valuable to them. And in the descriptions below, there's all kinds of links to my website and training programs if you're interested in training with me or coaching with me. It's all there. All right. Big hugs to you. Blessings. Bye for now.